While most people think piracy is not justified, this Disney case might just flip the entire debate on its head.
It's a very sad story about a woman who had an allergic reaction and died after eating at a Disney Springs restaurant.
Jeffrey Piccolo, just a regular guy like you and me, created a Disney Plus account on his PlayStation way back in 2019. He paid his subscription, followed all the rules, did everything by the book, but what he didn't know was one checkbox he ticked, just to watch some movies, had quietly stripped him of his right to justice. Years later, when a Disney-affiliated restaurant at Disney Springs called Raglan Road Irish Pub's negligence caused his wife's tragic death, he discovered he had unknowingly agreed to mandatory arbitration, preventing him from filing a lawsuit.
They are trying to throw out a wrongful death lawsuit in the most absurd legal loophole gymnastics way possible.
Disney says the terms and conditions of both Disney Plus and My Disney agreed to buy Piccolo give up his right to, quote, litigate a dispute in court before a judge or jury.
But what if Jeffrey had pirated Disney Plus instead? He wouldn't have ticked those boxes. No subscription, no checkbox, no mandatory arbitration, and maybe, just maybe, he could have gotten justice he deserved.
Because you signed up for Disney Plus, you have agreed to forced arbitration, which means that you can't take these people to court for killing your wife. So what they're actually saying is that if you had pirated Disney Plus's content, you very likely could have gotten a settlement check by now. You could have been in court already. But because you chose to do the right thing and pay for Disney content, that is the reason that you can't hold them accountable or responsible.
Piracy has long been painted as a shortcut for people who don't want to pay for things. But what if we've been looking at it all wrong? This isn't just Disney problem though. It's a systematic issue. Today, giant corporations, whether they are streaming platforms, software providers, or digital service hubs, are incredibly invasive, often forcing you to agree to terms and conditions, granting them extensive access to your personal data in exchange of using the service. Under the guise of copyright laws, licensing agreements, and DRM, they make you agree to lengthy terms and conditions full of legal jargon and fine print, leaving you unable to fully understand what you are signing. And in the end, you unknowingly waive away your rights and sometimes even your life. But when you pirate something, you bypass all of this. There are no terms and conditions to agree, no endless data sharing agreements. It's an immediate burdenless experience. It offers a level of freedom that the service you pay for can't provide. Freedom from corporate overreach. Freedom from being treated like a product to be monetized. On the surface, corporate claim they are trying to protect their products, but in reality, what they are really protecting is their power over you. They dictate when, where, and how you use the things that you paid for, while making sure you never truly own them. For example, when you buy one movie on Amazon, you'd assume it's yours forever. But if Amazon's licensing deals with its distributor expires, the movie vanishes from your library overnight.
This means you can use a product in the ways described in the license, but do not own the product.
Or look at Adobe. There was a time when you could outright purchase Photoshop one payment and it was yours to keep. But now you pay monthly for a subscription, and if you miss a payment, not only do the tools disappear, but so do your access to the projects you poured hours into. And this isn't just about software. Even customers of physical products aren't safe from this trap. Take John Deere for instance. Farmers who spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on tractors couldn't repair their own equipment just because John Deere locked their repairs behind proprietary software, which means they had to rely on authorized dealers for fixes, but it came with a premium price and a long wait time, of course. Think about that for a second. These farmers don't own their tractors, they own the privilege of using them, as long as they play by John Deere rules.
In the old days, you needed basically a wrench, and a hammer, and a pry bar. Today, they have embedded firmware all over these equipment systems. So you'll need to have software just to get it started, activated, and calibrated. So I guess hacking and fixing to me is the same thing.
Any company with software-driven product know there's more profit in restricting access by selling you less than full control even after you paid a fortune. They generate a steady revenue from you. The moment you agree on the terms and conditions before using their products, they can change the rule, tweak the software, or lock you out completely without asking. They sell you the illusion of ownership while holding all the real power. And if the so-called legal option can't even guarantee you ownership, what's the point of playing by the rules? And the worst part is that it's not just your money, the money they are taking. It's your rights, your control, and your autonomy. So if you really look at it, piracy isn't the villain here, but a way for people to reclaim control over their freedom and their right to true ownership. Because at the end of the day, piracy is a service problem. When you pay for something, whether it's a movie, game, or a streaming service, you're not just paying for the product itself, you're paying for the convenience and the experience and the reliability.
Piracy is about people want to steal stuff from you, right? That they don't want to pay any money and they want to get your content. But when you look at the fact that these people have, $2,000 PCs and, they're spending $50 a month US more on their internet connections, clearly they're willing to spend money.
But when the official version is harder to use, less accessible, and just plain worse than the pirated one, why bother spending the money? Take Game of Thrones for example. When the new episodes were released, fans worldwide wanted to watch them immediately. But due to regional restrictions and confusing airing dates, many people couldn't access the show legally even if they were willing to pay. So they pirated it. In fact, Game of Thrones became one of the most pirated shows in history, but because HBO's service didn't meet their expectations. Similarly, in 2013, when SimCity launched, players who paid full price had a constant server issue and a DRM requirement that rendered the game unplayable for days. Meanwhile, the pirated version bypassed these issues entirely, letting pirates enjoy the game without any hassle and with a way better and seamless experience. Piracy isn't always about getting things for free. It's often a response to bad service. If companies focused on delivering better service and respected the customer's time, money, and trust, there wouldn't be a need to pirate. If a product is better pirated, then it's not the pirates who are to blame. It's the companies who have failed to give the customer a reason to pay.
Piracy is a result of bad service.
Though the internet has made it easier than ever to access content, corporations still find ways to make it difficult. Using barriers like geo-restrictions, these large service providers lock their content behind regional licensing deals that makes movies, playing games, or accessing service unavailable to certain portion of their users just because of where they live. Take Netflix and Prime Video for example. While these platforms are available in 190 countries, their content libraries vary drastically based on location. Even globally beloved shows like Friends and The Office are locked behind regional agreements. While the viewers in US and Europe can stream it effortlessly, audience in countries like Singapore, Hong Kong, Thailand, and the Philippines are left with two options: wait for the licensing deal to change or turn into piracy to enjoy the show, even though they paid the same amount as others. These restrictions aren't limited to authentic streaming platforms. Everything is impacted, from gaming stores like Nintendo eShop and PlayStation Store offering limited content in certain countries. Even music on Spotify and videos on YouTube have region-based restrictions, leaving countless users locked out simply because of where they live. When corporations hinder accessibility like this, piracy stops feeling like a crime and starts looking like the only way to reclaim their access to a world that unfairly alienated them.
In the UK, you won't be able to access a lot of shows that Netflix in the US has to offer, like these. Meanwhile, if you're in the US, you won't be able to watch these shows.
Then another reason people turn into piracy is pricing. Up until a few years ago, most content was accessible on a single platform for a reasonable price. But now every company has launched its own streaming service, locking exclusive content behind walls of subscriptions. This is frustrating. Content fragmentation isn't just a barrier for those who can't afford the subscriptions. It's a nightmare for even those who are willing to pay. Simply because of spending time to manage and search for specific shows across 10 different platforms is simply not worth it.
Every week, there's another thing I have to make a password for, another thing I have to sign up for, and it drains my bank account, and I'm just so sick of it!
But the overwhelming process isn't the solo issue. The monthly fee for these streaming services are creeping higher year after year and becoming an unreasonable expense. For example, when Netflix launched its streaming service in 2007, it launched just at $7.99 per month with unlimited access to its content library. Fast forward to 2024, the most recent premium plan costs $29.99 month, $22.99 monthly, with only limited supported device. And it's not just Netflix. Disney Plus initially launched at $6.99 per month, and now it's tagged at $15.99, a staggering 129% increase in just 5 years. Even Spotify Premium provided a $11.99 month in the US merely to stream music. This doesn't stop at streaming services. In fact, software companies are playing the game. For example, if you want to access Adobe Creative Cloud, you'll have to pay $600 a year. For independent creators, students, or even small businesses, spending that amount of money is just outright impossible. People don't pirate because they refuse to pay. They pirate because the system doesn't give them a choice. Piracy becomes not just an alternative but only a viable option for many. It's not about entitlement but about surviving exploitation of platforms and service trying to get more money from you.
Prices are going up, control is going down, and ads are on the rise. Not to mention the things that I couldn't get to in this section. Like, if Disney owns everything, isn't it all just going to come in like a massive bundle that will look just like a cable plan and cost probably $1 bajillion? I don't know, just throwing it out there.
Another problem with these streaming platforms like Spotify, Netflix, and even YouTube, while they rake in billions, yet the very creators who fuel these platforms often see only fraction of that profit. Spotify, for instance, pays their artists between $0.003 to $0.005 per stream. For context, this means musicians would approximately need 250 streams just to earn a single dollar. So unless you are Drake or Taylor Swift pulling billions of streams, it's hardly a sustainable income. In fact, only 12% of the music industry's revenue actually goes to the artists themselves, while the rest gets funneled by these large corporations. Even streaming leaders like Netflix underpays creators while the platform profits from their content for years. Writers for popular Netflix originals like Witcher, Stranger Things have publicly complained about receiving no additional compensation despite the massive global success of their show. It's the same case for developers too. Prime example is Apple and its App Store policies, where developers are forced to pay high commission up to 30% for apps they sell. These fees also extend into in-app purchases, severely limiting developers' profit. Ironic how piracy becomes the unlikely ally of creators by offering them the reach and the recognition that the companies fail to provide.
Places where I was being pirated, particularly Russia, where people were translating my stuff into Russian and spreading it out into the world, I was selling more and more books. People were discovering me through being pirated. And then they were going out and buying the real books. And when a new book would come out in Russia, it would sell more and more copies. And I thought that was fascinating.
Indie musicians often resort to releasing their albums for free on platforms like Bandcamp or torrent sites. Why? Because the system doesn't reward them. Sharing their work directly allows them to reach a global audience without the string of corporation gatekeeping. Indie artist Hannah Wu explained how she would rather upload her music for free than let platforms like Spotify swallow almost all of her earnings. Whether it's musicians dropping free track on SoundCloud, writers offering novel on torrent, or filmmakers uploading indie projects to YouTube, piracy is a tool not out of spite but out of necessity.